Hello, dear viewers. Support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it. And also, make sure you comment your thoughts. Now let's start the video. Only when the sunlight angled directly through the high window into his eyes did Jaime Lannister move, if only to shift out of the way. He hadn't done much activity since arriving on Dragonstone. Confined to his chambers, Jaime mostly laid around, spending time in his mind. The same was true then, laying on his back on the bed. With all the time he had to himself, he had not much else to do but to ponder on things, and he was much more comfortable to do so than in the Black Cells. What did Jaime Lannister think of? He thought of Cersei a lot. His father, too. He wondered if there was anything else he could have done. House Lannister used to be so damn proud. Now they lay in waste. He doubted that he or Tyrion would procreate at this point. The name would probably be carried out by his Frey cousins he hadn't seen in eons. Wonder what you'd think about that, father? Tywin would have been so irate. Jaime thought about that plenty. How ashamed his father would be of him. He tried not to let that bother him, but it did. Tywin had been gone a long time. His death had been a shock, given how Tyrion did it. After Jaime had assisted his escape, he felt partly to blame. Not that he regretted freeing his brother, he had just always wished that Tyrion made a different choice. Tywin wasn't the best man, but he kept things in order. A lot of the many events after his death became uncontrollable. Jaime wondered what things would be different if his father hadn't died. The door to his chambers flew open, breaking Jaime from his thoughts. A visitor, Lannister, an unsullied guard muttered as he entered in a weak common tongue. The Lannister in question, Jaime glanced up. Jon Stark came strolling in. The guard shut the door behind him. "Well, hello there," Jaime said, huffing. "Lannister," he replied, crossing his arms. "You look like shit." A snort. "And feel like shit." He studied Jon. "Ironic. You defeated me at North Hill, and I never once got a glimpse of you. All the mud covering me must have been quite the disguise. Or so what I've heard. Garland Tyrell says they'll teach that victory for centuries." Bragging didn't suit Jon Stark well, though whether he was bragging wasn't apparent. "How are you holding up in here?" Jon said, looking around. "As well as to be expected, being a prisoner without being in the cells." Jon rolled his eyes. "You are not a prisoner here. Trust me." "Suppose you might know better," Jaime relented. "Suppose I should know too." Black cells, the pigpen in Robb Stark's camp. 3 for 3. "So you come to chat?" Stepping toward the end of the bed, Jon nodded. "Somewhat. I need some insight." "Ooh," Jaime got up from the bed and stood. "That sounds fun. Here's an idea. Why don't you sweet-talk that Unsullied into letting us go for a walk? I desperately need to leave these chambers." "I would, but I don't think that would work, even if I wanted to. I don't think I could communicate that well with the Unsullied guard," Jon said. "Ooh," Jaime sighed. "Try?" "No," Jon replied. "It's better we're here so there's little chance of someone overhearing." I see." Jaime pursed his lips. "Tyrion and Varys are getting to you." "Aye. Learning the game better than your father. I'm sure he'd be happy about that." He rose from the bed, feeling the creak in his knees. "What would you like me to do about it?" Jaime chuckled, moving to find a seat at a table near the wall. Jon mirrored him. "I need insight. As I said." "Insight about what?" "Tyrion, you know him best." "This may be true," Jaime said. "What is it you want to know?" "Something of use to get him off my back," Jon sighed. "He is convinced I'm a spy." Yaxley smirked, a gesture that would have had maidens to matrons fainting back in the day. "Well, I can understand how he got to that conclusion. Can't you?" "No, I know why he thinks that." Jon shook his head. "I need to know how to work around it, or talk him out of it." "Well, what is he doing?" "Your brother has constantly put himself in opposition to me. I never wronged him. In fact, I once thought we had a shared kinship," Jon said, with a sigh. "With Tyrion, he tends to hold a grudge." Yaxley pursed his lips. "I was the only one that he never hated. We never butted heads. As opposed to our father and Cersei. Do you have any idea what might have happened between the two of you that caused this rift?" Jon scratched his chin. "No." "Really? No clue?" Johnny exhaled. "I confronted him about his treatment of me. I'm sure that went very well," Jaime said, dryly. "How'd you know?" Jon poked back. Jaime waved his hand. "Sorry, continue." "Well, He'd been attacking me at every opportunity during these meetings with Daenerys' small council. Jaime jumped in. Daenerys. You have a pet name for Daenerys Targaryen? He laughed. That's interesting. I had a pet name for Cersei. Must you keep interrupting me, Lannister? Seven hells. Jon sighed. Jaime said nothing, just smirking at him. It's not a pet name. It sure sounds like one, Jaime snorted. Jon ignored his sentiment, going on with his story. I went to Tyrion's chambers. I stood at the door, wondering if it was even worth it to try. Jaime opened his mouth, but Jon stared daggers at him. Jaime closed his mouth shut. Jon continued. But I knocked away, he let me in. I just wanted to talk him out of thinking I'm Stannis' double agent sent here to seduce Daenerys and report back her secrets. That is what Stannis sent you here to do, correct? Yes, obviously. But that's not for Tyrion to know, obviously. Jon huffed. Also, that's not what I'm actually doing. So you didn't seduce Daenerys? Jon Stark had Eddard Stark's glare. But it was far more menacing, right? But Tyrion has always been fairly good at figuring out those sorts of secrets, Jaime said, shrugging. I'm not surprised he's figured it out. It's also futile to talk him out of it. He will have to be convinced by concrete evidence. Which I don't have, Jon said. Anything you say to him trying to talk him out of it just won't work. He won't give you the time of day. Yes, I'm aware. I experienced that. Then you know this endeavor is fruitless. Jon scoffed. Then what shall I do about it then? He moves to block me or demean me publicly at every turn. Is Daenerys on your side? Something quite familiar crossed Jon's face. An expression Jaime had oft-seen in the mirror. Then what do you have to worry about? He is poisoning everyone else against me, except for Missandei, possibly Theon. Garland Tyrell is neutral, but he's not important in the scheme of things. Tyrion, Barristan, Varys, and Grey Worm. They are the vocal majority. They could move against me at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if they did it out from under Daenerys. Jon shook his head. I doubt they'd do that. It's not impossible. Fucking Daenerys did it. He was just one man. I'd be horrified to know what Tyrion and Varys could do to me with my back turned. Jon said, pacing slightly. This concerns you as well. If something happens to me, you'll meet Drogon face to face. Calm down, as I said, convincing Tyrion otherwise is impossible. What about the others? Could you convince them? Jon froze. Perhaps. Who? Barristan, mayhaps. One person. Jon's eyes widened. Well, there's Ser Jorah. He's just arrived. There's a chance I could get to him before Tyrion. He may hold a heavy sway because of his closeness to Daenerys. Would he listen to you? Jaime frowned. I don't know, but there's a chance. I should try, Jon said. Jaime nodded. If you think he'll listen, you should try. Anyone for that matter. You have to get more people on your side. I'm not sure what Tyrion may do. I once freed him from prison, but he killed my father with a crossbow. I never imagined that. I had heard about that. He definitely didn't have to, Yaksafe scowled. I had just freed him. Varys had secured his passage out of the city. Unfinished business, Jon muttered. Is that what you'd call it? Jaime clenched his jaw. Tyrion shot him with a crossbow while he relieved himself. I never understood why. He had felt slighted and tormented by Tywin his whole life, correct? Perhaps he called it revenge, Jon shrugged. Wasn't he awaiting execution at the time? Tyrion had just been condemned to death for poisoning Joffrey. Tywin had ruled over the proceedings, but Tyrion hadn't done it. He was innocent. Jon nodded. He was Daenerys told me the truth on it. Apparently Baelish killed Joffrey at the behest of Lady Olenna Tyrell. Jaime's eyes widened. The Queen of Thorns? That's what they call her. Never met the lady, but apparently she left quite the big footprint if they still speak of her after her death. As for Baelish, he seems like a complete cunt. Oh, you're not wrong about him. Jaime covered his face in his hands, sighing deeply. Makes sense now. On that, I'll think on it later. But I'm glad Tyrion's innocence was proved. If only father, from what I know of Tywin Lannister, Jon interrupted, he would have gone through with it regardless. Executing his son for a crime as judged by the gods is not kinslaying. I can understand Tyrion's bitterness, but directing it at me is simply mad. He pinched the bridge of his nose. What must I do then? You know him better than I. Jaime, for once, was at a loss. He has changed so much. I can only say, you prove your loyalty to his queen. I can't do the overt actions you ask me to, not yet. All I can do is ensure you're kept alive. He bristled. I'm not yet ready to swear an oath to Queen Daenerys, much as I feel her as less odious than Stannis. A shrug. No one's asking you to. Jon reached out to pat his shoulder. You're the only one from the Black Cells with me that remembers what we discussed. Your point. Just keep your mind sharp and wait for my return. He rose and headed to the door. You're officially under my supervision as the most neutral party in this entire keeping. I shall return forthwith. With the door closed, Jaime fell back onto the cot, huffing, my security under the dominion of the Dragon Queen's lover. How delightfully ironic. I look utterly ridiculous. Nonsense, you look wonderful, says the girl that prefers to dance with a spear over a man or woman. Hearing Elia giggle at that, Taizane rolled her eyes at her sister, and I would vastly prefer my trousers, or at least a dress of my homeland that isn't so confining. She had paused to confer upon the correct word. It was correct, concerning her outfit. There was the familiar orange and mustard yellow, was close to gold, she supposed, but the black trim that denoted her as a new member of House Baratheon wasn't. The cut of the dress also was quite claustrophobic, a high line covering her neck and exposing no skin, while the trim waist hugging her upper body contrasted with the poofy skirt that billowed out around her legs. Again did her sister giggle, reaching out to pinch her cheek in spite of the perfectly applied makeup. You are the queen of the Seven Kingdoms, not a bastard sand snake. Best remember that, for you wield more power than you could do with your knives. And I suppose you say this is my armor. Tywin meant it with a huff, but eventually smirked. Can't run or fight in it, but I find myself more dangerous. That's the spirit, Ty, or should I say your grace now. This time, she did huff. Shut it. But they smiled. The moment lightened. And I do have my blades, if need be. Your husband will be scandalized if you display your leg to get at them. A garter attached to her thigh, a perfect hiding place. Tywin laughed. Knowing him, he'd likely become more beast than man. Her husband was not a man of surprises, except for that, inclined to devour her he was, but considering what they said of the previous Queen Sealase, Tywin was not herself surprised. Never did he bet a woman of any physical beauty worthy of his station. Poor cunt. In any case, I must depart. Will you be needing my services as more than a lady-in-waiting? She shook her head. I would wish you could be my sworn spear, but I'm already unconventional enough of a queen. Let's not remind the old farts on his small council more of the fact. They both chuckled and embraced, bidding each other farewell for the moment. Your Grace, spoke Sir Andrew Estermont in his Kingsguard armor, bowing to her as she left the Queen's chambers. Sir Andrew? Tywin nodded, beginning her walk through the corridors as he followed. Among the Stormlands dominated Kingsguard of Stannis, he was one of the few that held no ill will to Dorne, given that Estermont's island keep was more threatened by Stepstone's pirates rather than the Dornish over history. As such, he was assigned to watch over her. Am I to meet my husband for lunch? That was usually when they met, except on days when he asked for her to remain in bed with him all during the night. The Kingsguard shook his head. Small council meeting, Your Grace. They are present already, but His Grace wishes to wait for you to arrive. Teemy was surprised. Truly? Aye, Lord Commander Edric told me himself. She was somewhat touched, mostly delighted that her position was so valued by her king, given what she could do with it. Let us hurry then. True to form, the small council chambers were quiet as all waited, directed by the silent king, one not inclined to boredom and instead very patient, a rather welcome trait after the reigns of Aerys, Robert, and Joffrey. However, Stannis' face lit up as he spotted Tywin. My queen, infatuated deeply as if he were 20 years younger. Stannis rose unsteadily to his feet and accepted Tywin's outstretched hands, drawing her close and kissing her cheek, and then a peck on the lips. I was growing worried. Tywin only giggled, batting her eyelashes. One cannot be perfectly groomed with just a shave and some fine armor as a woman. Forgive my need to appear a proper queen. The effort to prime him worked, and he merely smiled. 'Tis all right. A queen you must be, and one I desire you to be. He gestured for Tywin to sit next to him across from Baelish and the place of honor. She noticed Randall Tarley glaring at her, but otherwise, the rest merely accepted it. Baelish, he looked almost placid. Immediately she knew him to be the most dangerous, but made her way to her seat. not after running a hand down Stannis' left arm in a rather flirtatious manner, reveling in his adoring smile. Such a man was so easy to charm. So Stannis began, shifting in his seat upon which a proper cushion had been placed in regards for his leg. Now that my beautiful queen has arrived, we can start this session of the small council. The chamber was quite spacious, the burning heart edition of the rearing stag placed all over the place to leave no one in doubt over which house had claimed King's Landing and the Iron Throne. What news of Lord Stark? Your Grace, stated Baelish, bowing his head. Lord Stark has sent a letter speaking of his efforts. He produced a dispatch. Essentially, he states that Queen Daenerys will not depart from Westeros. Ransley scoffed. I could have told anyone that a dragon would never give in. They are close to madness that way. Like her father, she is, said another of the council, just whom Tyene did not recognize. She would need to do so if she were to survive here. I say find a way to assassinate her. No, I trust Jon Stark to find a solution. Stannis was firm. Baelish, does he have some sort of optimistic outlook in negotiation? None that I believe is more than mere wishful thinking. That means he must have something. All eyes were on Tion as the flirtatious sand snake changed into a firm viper. Allow me to read the letter. Your Grace, you can be sure of... Stannis met her gaze and then turned to Littlefinger. Give her the letter, Baelish. Sighing, Baelish did so while keeping a smile, hiding his true attitude. As Tyene looked it over, Stannis waited. Something, my queen? Tyene nodded. Lord Stark thinks that he's found a reasonable compromise, an arrangement in which that you both shall have the throne. That caused quite the shock. Share the throne, as if co-kings? Randyll scoffed. No, according to him, Daenerys would be Stannis' heir, given they are related by blood. Explain, Stannis demanded, more to the absent Jon Stark than to Tyene. Clearing her throat, Tyene went on. He states, You, my king, shall rule in Westeros until your death. Upon which Daenerys, being your second cousin by virtue of your grandmother Riziel Targaryen, shall succeed you. After, your eldest child shall marry her eldest child and thus fully merge your two houses. I believe her grace is amenable to it if her council seeks different occurrences. See, while she may be a whore that can be seduced, the imp won't allow for it. Silence, Randyll. Let me think. Stannis brooded, glowering and rubbing his chin, as he thought in silence. And she will make peace? Lord Stark claims so. I see, Stannis sighed and gestured to Littlefinger. Write to him and inform Jon that he is to tell the Dragon Queen that if this is the case, I will demand she stay in Slaver's Bay for as long as I live, and that I will need to approve any husband she is to take to father such heirs that she would need to marry my heir. I advise you not to consider this, and I advise that you do, Tyene, countered Littlefinger. Stannis nodded. I know the true war is to the north, where I will bring the dawn. The Iron Throne is mine. I can afford to be magnanimous as long as I maintain my control. Herself having won the day in her first as a queen part of Stannis' inner circle, Tyene suppressed her smile, wishing not to push. From the focus of Littlefinger's shrouded gaze, it didn't work. Battle lines were drawn. Is this what you dealt with, father? Mother? There was no wonder Oberyn fled for a life of adventure. But Tyene was stuck. By the gods, and her native Dornan, hopefully, she wouldn't find the same fate. Lord Stark, your terms are quite unprecedented and lacking in tradition, at least since after the Targaryens united Westeros. The Maesters informed me that it had happened once in the past, when the petty kings of the Golden Tooth submitted to House Lannister. And in regards to the act of alliance between the Starks and the Boltons, I feel that is where you obtained the idea from. Looking up from the letter, Daenerys peered at Jon with curiosity. Is that where you obtained it? Jon shrugged. I conceived of something along those lines, and Sam did the research from the library. When he found that little tidbit, then I was hooked. You are much more of a diplomat than when I met you. I hope that is a compliment. Daenerys smiled, leaning in to kiss his lips. Aye, very much a compliment. A queen needs someone with a clever mind and the knowledge to which best deploy his physical prowess. She looked back at the letter, only to smirk. Do go on, he spoke, mollified. Ding he did. Lord Stark, as you are a son to me. She looked up at him, a lover to a queen, a son to her rival king. Did Cersei Lannister see you as her father? Perhaps she'd have not gone mad if that were the case. Chuckling, Dany continued reading. I trust you implicitly. I do not trust the Dragon Queen, however. Mad she could easily go and finish what my good sis started, and her advisors are enemies of all that is good and just in the realm. For her to be my heir as you suggest, I could not in good conscience do without verification. She must agree to remain in Meereen and her other holdings until I pass on from the world. If she is to marry and bear an heir, then she must only take a consort to which I also approve of. If I didn't know that your stark nature would find you unwilling to marry the daughter of the one that slaughtered your uncle and brother and sister of the man that raped your aunt, I would ask you to complete your seduction by marrying her and being secure in her obedience. Dany scoffed. Complete your seduction? Aye, Jon sighed. Tyrion did sniff that out. That is the reason that Stannis sent me here, but I was the one who planted the idea, truly. He also thinks I'm informing on you. Surely he'd be surprised to learn the truth. I imagine. I do need to keep this message private. Tyrion and Varys cannot know. Dany nodded, then kept reading. If you would, then I would be much more inclined to accept. Relieved I would be, though I always had aspirations for you by my side as Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. Inform me of her answer to my demands. Stannis Baratheon, first of his name, King of the Seven Kingdoms. Waiting for Daenerys' response, the nature of being the lover of a dragon and privy to her most intimate and personal of moments meant that Jon needed not to wait for her response. He makes demands of me. She shot up from where she sat next to him, the bedchamber almost shaking as she bellowed. This insect makes demands of me. When I could find his home and turn it into a smoldering pile of ash as Aegon the Conqueror did Harrenhal. Daenerys, he began, standing until he faced her. Please calm yourself. Ignore him. She did. No, he will not do this to me. Stannis makes no demands of me when I have been nothing but generous towards him. I should have burned his armies when I had the chance, then dealt with Cersei. You mean while I was in his council? His words seemed to have their effect, easing the white-hot dragon fire that Daenerys was spitting. There is not in here any unreasonable offer. Jon, I love you, but do you seriously expect me to give up all that I've strived for since I walked into the flames and birthed my 3 dragons, my children? Turning towards her, Jon reached out to touch her sides, willing her to relax and accept his words without anger or indignation. Thankfully she did, but her searching glance remained. Dany, no one can take away from you that on which you won, and as long as I am here, you will always hold the loyalty and respect of much of the 7 kingdoms. But your situation is dire. No one knows you in Westeros as anything but a conqueror and the daughter of a tyrant. She bristled. I am not my father. Jon leaned in to kiss her brow. I know that, my love, and I know you would be the greatest of all rulers. Daenerys bit her lip, crossing her arms, but in her eyes shone love for him. Your dragons, it is not a threat to all to hear of the dragons of the conquerors, or Jacarlines and Alysanne, or even Maelor and the Targaryens of the dance. They are long dead, and a name in a book cannot harm those of the present. But yours are alive, and therefore cause fear. Opening her mouth to say something, Daenerys stopped herself, instead sighing. The tension left her body as she walked into Jon's embrace. How do I show that I do not wish to be a queen of the ashes, that I wish them the same prosperity and respect I gave to the slaves of Meereen, Astapor, and Yunkai? If it comes to war, you could win against Stannis. You hold a vast advantage against him, Jon said. You could even have me fighting for you. She glanced up. Could. Her lips curled into a smirk. Well, he grinned back, I am an excellent swordsman, a general as well. I seem to recall I beat you in our one engagement. And it was a close-run thing, even with your dragons, I seem to recall people telling me. It was a dangerous line of thought, discussing the time when the 2 lovers had clashed with each other on the field of battle. Though I would venture to say, with your dragons behind me, I would be fairly unstoppable. Daenerys cooed, nuzzling his neck. You just might. Had their conversation been any less serious, likely she would have dragged him to her chambers for a mid-afternoon romp. She was queen after all, but that would have to wait. But you do not wish to seek a military solution. He nodded. Who would be seen as greater than a woman who could have burned to ash all her enemies, but chooses to make peace with them? To end the war and dying while coming into ownership of the 7 kingdoms anyway. I may be biased, but you cannot lose. Biased, because this is your negotiated solution. No, because an outcome such as that removes a much different story of how another Targaryen burned down cities and towns, people in their beds. It changes the way that people see you, Dany. This is important. Again, he managed to see her soul fill with warmth through her violet eyes. There will not be a great clamor for such an agreement within my council. John sighed. I do imagine they'd be confused at the mere notion of it, especially Barristan and Grey Worm. Realistically, you would win. Possibly even easily. Deciding to not take that opportunity would cause an uproar. Can you blame them? John, I could have the Iron Throne in a matter of days if I wanted, and I do want it that badly. I understand if I do that way, maybe innocence will be caught in my wake, but I can see why my advisors would be skeptical of your plan, Dany said. Truthfully, I am skeptical as well. It would be a defeat to retreat back to Meereen, biding my time until Stannis fades away. I understand how you'd feel that way. What about a siege? Dany asked. Well, John pursed his lips. They could survive for a while, even if you cut off supplies from the sea. But then the townsfolk are trapped inside. They'd turn on each other eventually. I'd imagine it would become rather chaotic. All because you trapped them inside the gates. Not quite as bad as burning the city down, but they'd still hate you. I spend so much time trying to avoid this hatred, Dany muttered. I'm starting to believe it may be unavoidable. Dany, they just need to see you for who you are. They don't want to see me in that way, Dany replied. Perhaps they can't. You have to show them that you're not what Stannis says you are, Jon said. That's why you find a bloodless way to win the throne. She pulled away from him and wandered towards the window, white dress brushing against the floor. Since his return, she'd started to dress in a manner more gentle than the previous battle dress, partly for the sense of peace, but Jon figured she also meant to entice him. He followed her. Your plan. The bloodless way. Many of my small council will not be in agreement. I highly doubt they will be in favor of it. Miss Aindy might, for she would rather finish the liberation of the SOC cities. Jara, he'll back me in whatever means necessary. But the others, Varys and Barristan distrust me, as does Grey Worm to a lesser extent. Jon summarized. Theon, I believe it is time that I forgive him, for he has finally picked the Starks to support. Lord Garland would simply be happy to get his lands back. Those were the easiest, as he steeled his breath. Tyrion hates me. Daenerys was like him, not one to mince words. Aye, he does. Why, I cannot fathom. Jealousy is my suggestion, no insecurity is possible. He shrugged. In any case, only your will is what matters. To take my lands that I have conquered, Dragonstone included. To have Garland confirmed as Lord of the Reach, and Aerion given all rights back. Plus I will need a husband that Stannis would find acceptable, and I would, for I grow tired of such games. That the man I marry not be someone I wish not to share my bed with till I pass on. A grin crossed her face. Perhaps I should take Stannis' advice and marry you. Jon smiled sheepishly, only half affront. If it pleases your grace, he thought. He noticed a flash of something sorrowful before a smile covered it up. It does please my queen, no. Dany approached him. She was Dany at this moment, not the queen. It does. Their lips slanted together, and soon all was forgotten for the present moment. Aerie, slow down. It should have been quite impossible for anyone so impressive in size and strength to be dragged by a girl that could barely raise over 5 feet. But no one knew the determination of Arya Stark. I think we've passed the same sarcophagus 3 times. Yak snorted. No, we didn't, stupid bull. To be fair to Gendry, no one other than a Stark or the most learned of maesters could make any sense of the snaking tunnels of the Winterfell crypts. Thousands of years of Kings of Winter and later Lords of Winterfell were carved into the rock and laid to rest. Her father was there, as was her brother Robb, Uncle Brandon, and Aunt Lyanna. At least for Robb and her father's statues, they looked nothing as they were. Arya vowed she'd make sure hers was secured while she was alive, to show her in her prime. I am Arya Stark, and they will know me. Just shut up and follow me. Need to be away from it. Yet again he peered at her. Who are you talking about? The Raven. Aerie, there are no birds down here. Flying rats perhaps, but no birds. Rolling her eyes for the 5th time, Arya finally shoved him into the alcove between the tombs of Rickon VI and Brandon III. Where Rickon III and Brandon VI, the inscriptions were covered in dust and cobwebs. Enough with your fear of fucking bats. Why did she put up with him? 'Cause she cared for him? No other man would simply let you guide him deep into the crypts to mollify your paranoia. He cares about you too. Somehow her little voice sounded exactly like Sansa. Sighing, Arya tugged on his shirt, planting a kiss on his lips when he bent down. Thanks for putting up with me. Gendry nodded. It sounded serious, and you wouldn't be so serious lest it was important. Sometimes the stupid bull was quite clever. What is it then? Who is the Raven? She bit her lip. I'm not sure. Gods, I don't even know who the fucking Raven is. Is he the same one that caused Podrick to go mad? Arya gaped at him. I mean, he seemed quite normal, the kind of guy that his mates would drag him blushing into a brothel 'cause he didn't have the stones to do it himself. That drew a chuckle from her. I think that did actually happen to him once. It was bittersweet given his death, given Sansa's pregnancy, which was progressing healthily. He never would have done this if he was in his right mind, and Jon managed to come to a conclusion in regards to him. That something called the Raven was the cause. And you know nothing about the Raven? Next to nothing. She bit her lip. From what he told me in his letter, there resides information at the library in Castle Black, and I'm going there. Gendry nodded. You wish me to come with you? Arya peered at him, and if I was to ask you something else, I'd listen, but resolve to come with you whether you wished it or not. 'Cause you think I can't take care of myself. A slight smirk. No, but better to have backup, and I think you would want my company to ward off the cold. Arya opened her mouth, only to groan. Damn you for being as warm as your forge. Gendry laughed and picked her up, kissing her again and making Arya moan into his mouth. Both were unaware that even deep in the dominion of the Kings of Winter, they were being watched. Jon rounded a corner, peering around. He set his eyes on Missandei, walking ahead. He picked up his own pace to catch up with her. He'd been searching for her and had been unable to find her for over an hour. She had much to do, he gathered. Lady Missandei. Jon smirked and he got up next to her. Lord Stark, she replied. They continued walking. I've been looking for you. Is that so? Well, since it seems the majority of Daenerys' small council would rather see the end of me, seemingly, I decided it might be warranted to speak to you, Jon said. I'm not certain where we stand. You are a man that invokes the most divergent attitudes, Lord Stark. A brow raised as he stared at Missandei of Noth, Jon could only manage to smirk slightly. I remember little, but what I do recall of my past, it is not a recent problem of mine, Lady Missandei. The translator and closest friend of Daenerys' only chuckled, a light expression obvious on her face. She liked few and trusted fewer, but if they could walk through the colonnaded walkways of Dragonstone together, enjoying a beautiful view of Blackwater Bay beyond, and the dragons circling high above, then he felt himself one of the privileged few to earn both achievements. Why does that not surprise me? I am told that the mother of my half-siblings did not like me, even as most of them and my own father adored me. While the concept of bastardy baffles me as a Nathi, as a learned woman in the Queen's service I can understand why the wife of your father would feel threatened by you. The Blackfyre rebellions put a dark stain on bastards. Jon rolled his eyes. I do remember something about Lady Catelyn Stark. The name of Daemon Blackfyre came up in that, gods. I wasn't going to usurp my brother. I don't need any memories to be sure of that fact. You love and are loyal to your family, my lord. Losing your memory didn't kill this inside you. Missandei eyed him as they slowly walked, attractive dark eyes scrutinizing him with an intelligence hidden by her facade of subservience. Jon could appreciate how she, and by extension Dati, used the tendency to underestimate this former slave. Clearly, she was more intelligent an advisor than Tyrion thought he was. The question is whether that extends to our queen. He noticed how her gaze narrowed, growing firm behind her facade. Trying to delve into my intentions too, Lady Missandei. She cocked her head. I may not assume ill intent as Lord Varys or Lord Tyrion, but I must ask. A far less physically threatening than Ser Jorah, I take it. No less dangerous, though. Missandei could have him fed to the dragons if he slipped up. Not that he minded being fed to a hungry Daenerys. Do not worry, her grace is as much family as my siblings. How do I believe you, Jon Stark, since I do wish to for her grace's sake? An interesting question. He stopped, leaning against the stone battlement while Missandei crossed her arms over the simple, white gown that contrasted quite alluringly with her dark skin. This unsullied commander was a very lucky man. One I cannot answer you just yet. She blinked, Pardon? You heard me, my lady, he grinned. But I ask you not to trust me, just to trust your queen. Narrowing her eyes. Eventually, Missandei snorted. Well played, Lord Stark. Now she chuckled. Her grace is very much taken with you. I should hope so for my sake. I sometimes have nightmares of a jilted lover setting her dragons upon me. The risk of falling for the Dragon Queen, Missandei chuckled further. Just love her, and be faithful if you are loyal. She cocked her head. Men tend to have a wandering eye in my experience. They earn the love of one, but desire others in close proximity. He felt there was an unsaid question there. While I find you greatly attractive, Lady Missandei, if you are offering, I must refuse. As good of a swordsman I am, I'd rather not risk the spear of your Unsullied if I don't have to. She seemed taken aback, only to laugh. Even I underestimated you, Jon Stark. Well played. Well played. Indeed. Lady Missandei both tilted their heads to see the Queen's official lady-in-waiting, Linus Hightower. Unlike the very wealthy reputation of her house, she was dressed simply in a green gown, hair pulled up in a gentle crown of braids, with a gold chain, with a single ruby dangling from her neck. Missandei turned from Jon to address her. Yes, Lady Linus, a raven from Driftmark. Lord and Lady Valoran are seeking arrival on Dragonstone to meet with her grace. Have you discussed this with Sir Barristan? Yes, and he's accepted it, but we need to prepare for how to receive them. A shake of the head. No feasts, her grace doesn't wish to waste the resources, but she will host a private reception with Lord Veloyan and his wife. No more than 10 places in the private dining chamber. She nodded. I shall make the arrangements myself. Thank you, my lady. Turning, Linus briskly walked back into the keep, leaving Missandei and Jon alone once more. Missandei sighed. Gods, I am only glad she and Sondajar keep their distance from each other. History there. She was his wife. I need not know the rest to make a determination, he replied. Daenerys fought with the Hightowers. Do you feel her a threat? I feel everyone a threat to her. Jon Stark, but varying degrees. She gave the Hightowers mercy, and so far they haven't done anything. Missandei leaned against the wall. Best to keep her close, I suppose. Keep them worried of the future and more likely to keep in line. Her Grace wishes for Lord Baelor's younger brothers and later his sons to be fostered in the capital once we take it. Ensure that it isn't a prison for them, and more of a fostering. You wouldn't wish to breed a long-lasting resentment. Why, Lord Stark, I hope you don't think me as simple as certain others. Both shared a laugh at that. After parting ways with Missandei, Jon arrived back in his chambers. Lord Stark, rose Sir Jaime, bowing, and only half sarcastically. I was wondering when you'd arrive. So, when did Her Grace's Blood Riders bring you here? Jaime grunted. Since before the crack of dawn, he rolled his shoulders. Haven't truly been up that early since my squireship, and Lord Crackall was an unforgiving teacher. Indeed, he sat down. How long have you been up, considering I was greeted with empty chambers? Since before you. Barely sleep? I never sleep, least not now. A grin. Deprived of the warmth of your companion. At Jon's icy stare, he raised his good hand. Just an observation. I can speak from experience as to that fact. He sighed. A tortured soul only rests in death or the arms of a lover. And your lover was your sister, if I recall correctly. I am sure you should judge me for it, considering the honor of your house. Certainly, Jon replied. It is very clear your sister didn't love you, nor respected you. So if there was any comfort, it was solely one-sided. Jorge opened his mouth to respond, only for nothing to come out. He instead chuckled dryly. I have yet to understand how you work inside, Jon Stark. It was Jon's turn to snort. Many people have said that to me lately, even those that love me. It wasn't that he wished not for Arya, Sam, or Daenerys to understand him. He loved them, though to varying degrees. But he wasn't sure he could explain it, even if he wanted to. Only Aemon seemed to instinctively understand him, and he was dead now. Gods help me. I'm insane. I wish you were here. He sighed, forging ahead regardless. Do you know why I sent for you? Besides Her Grace, whom I assume you told, I am the only person on this damned island that knows of your true intent. So I believe you wish for counsel as to go forward. Jon nodded. Peace is at hand, Sir Jaime. I can taste it, and hope not for it to be squandered. You care for Stannis, don't you? Without anything left, It was clear Jaime had no issue with being aggressively blunt. Not as much as the Queen, obviously. He doesn't have the parts she has. Jon's glare seemed to make him laugh, but you do not wish him to come to harm. Hanging his head, Jon allowed himself to nod. He raised me from my station. I fought for him. Perhaps he is the surrogate father I obtained after mine was killed. Jatielme didn't judge. Eddard Stark was close to Stannis. Not the same brotherly affection as he had with Robert, but there was clear respect between them. Stannis, he's a smart and just man, but no one holds love for him. Without all the lies and assumptions, they would choose Daenerys over him, no matter what. He loses a long war, while Daenerys can do no worse than a draw. He tapped the table. You doing this is the best that he can realistically pry out of the Queen, and if she's willing, you're doing them both a favor. Pulling out a scroll from the desk, he unfurled it and began to scribble words down. Not in his best calligraphy, but he didn't intend this to be the copy he sent to Stannis, merely to jot his thoughts down. As such, the finished first draft was done quickly. Here, he handed it to Jaime. Your thoughts, King Stannis? I believe I can sway Queen Daenerys and her small council. For the most part, they are against me. However, I've convinced them that this way leads to the least bloodshed possible. This is true, but I know that Daenerys doesn't want to retreat, seeing as she has come so far. Yet I mentioned to her that Westeros will accept her more readily if she isn't bringing the country to heel with her dragons as her ancestors did. Jon paused writing for a few moments, pondering before continuing. At the very least, I believe I can get them to agree to a parley in which you can iron out the specific details with Daenerys face to face. She listens to me, as we suspected. As to your suggestion of marriage, I am open to it, though your invitation to be your Lord Commander would honor me greatly. Our plan of seduction proved essential. I was able to get close to her easily. I have her ear, and my position there can only grow. I pray I may see you soon, and peace is close at hand. Lord Stark. Pursing his lips, Jaime read the lines one by one before he set it down. I should only hope none but the Queen know what is in these contents. They do not put your loyalty in a good light. I am loyal to both, but will choose Daenerys if need be. But you don't wish to need to be, which is the purpose of this letter. Jon sighed. The Daenerys knows. At least I've told her my strategy. Stannis trusts me, and if I must convince him that I am trying to seduce my love to ensure she accepts the peace, then so be it. I've spoken to her at the length of this, and she understands. Truthfully, he and Dainty shared much humor over the nature of it. How she was forced to punish him when confronted with his intended misdeeds and manipulation of her. He smiled at the memories, one of the few good ones he had left. Most of those involved Daenerys. Finally looking back at Jaime, the latter was glaring at him. You don't even want to know. The fallen knight shook his head. If her grace trusts you and knows what you're doing, then the letter is worth sending. I think Stannis will accept, but you'll have to go visit him in person. He'll need to see evidence of your sincerity in regards to him to trust you, given he is sacrificing much as well. I have spent enough time away from Daenerys. I cannot leave her. If you're confident in your plan, then you won't be long without her, Lord Stark. Jon leaned back, looking up at the ceiling as he pondered what Jaime was saying, not knowing that there were eyes upon both of them. Especially in regards to that draft Raven Scroll, the Queen had been right long ago. No one noticed the handmaids, and all it required was for Lord Stark and Cypress Jaime to leave the chambers for one particular handmaid to find what she was looking for. A somewhat secret family meeting took place in Winterfell's Great Hall. Ariel had called it, deciding it should be early in the morning before sunrise. She had become slightly paranoid as of late with the possibility of being watched by ravens. The idea of being listened to and watched at all times did not excite her in the slightest. Brain, Sansa, and Rickon sat at the long table. Arya stood in front of them, silent in the room, except for the crackling of the hearth behind the table. Jon sent me a Raven Scroll, Arya began. Sorry for not mentioning it sooner, but my mind has been scrambled by it. She pinched the bridge of her nose. I wasn't sure what to do. I'd show it to you, but Jon asked that I burn it after reading, which I did. Arya continued. Their face was impassive, but inside they were paying attention more closely. Jon was talking with an old maester named Aemon on his deathbed. Jon asked the maester some questions. Basically, the letter says that Podrick may have been attacked by a warg, or at least, that's what Aemon said. Sansa frowned. A warg? What's that? Rickon asked. Not entirely sure, Ira sighed. I called this meeting because I thought Bran might have some insight for us. Everyone turned to Bran, to which they replied back with a blank and furrowed brows. Can you tell us anything about wargs, Bran? What would you like to know? Bran finally said, knowing it was time to engage with their companions. Anything really, Arya shrugged. Brienne Stark's family would be inquisitive, dangerously inquisitive. Best to give them something. Wargs can see through the eyes of other things. Typically animals. Some Starks in history have been able to warg into their direwolves. Truly, Rickon seemed very intrigued in that fact. What happens when they warg? Sansa asked. They have some level of control over the animal. They see what the animal sees. How do you know all this? Sansa asked. Because I am a warg myself. Sansa and Rickon seemed surprised, but Arya was unmoving. Yes, I figured that might be the case, she said. You are able to control animals, Rickon said. Like direwolves? I've controlled Summer before he died. Both Sansa and Rickon appeared with sympathy for him. Good, they wouldn't pry. Warging was very difficult and only into Summer. While I can see things through the eyes of Summer, for instance, are animals the only thing a ward can control? Arya asked Bran, slightly firmly. What about people? Brienne stared blankly at Arya. Are you accusing me of being responsible for Podrick's death? Sansa gasped, covering her mouth. Yak spoke. I don't know, did you do it? You're the only warg I've ever met or heard of. Wargs are the only people we know that are capable of controlling people, making them do things against their will. Her eyes narrowed, arms crossed, like try to kill Sansa. Arya, that's enough, Sansa cried, already growing emotional as she clutched her belly, just beginning to show. I was just asking a question. Arya was unrepentant. He's our brother. If he has nothing to hide, then he has nothing to fear from his loving sister. They were playing a very dangerous game, skirting dangerous ground, before they were strong enough. But love for Bran Stark consumed all of them. That was their saving grace. I find it hard to warg outside of animals that are not Summer. Most wargs struggle in that regard. Which is why they always have bonded animals. They remembered a moment from Jon Stark's past. Jon was injured by one who used an eagle as his bonded companion. So you haven't warged into anything else? Rats, mice, an owl once. Nothing so difficult and willful as a human, sister. They tried to give what they felt was a good approximation of a sardonic comment. Human emotion, other than rage, wasn't their strong suit. But from the relaxing Arya, it seemed the gambit worked. Rest assured, we were not the one. All right, Arya sighed, looking sad and apologetic. Forgive me, Bran. I just had to be sure. Sansa sighed. We're all in the same boat, fearful and surrounded by enemies. These people within these walls plus Jon are the only ones we can trust. Fools. They neglected to reveal the full birth of their sight, mostly because they'd failed to comprehend it. But also it would reveal too much. Their green seer abilities. They had seen the past, present, and future. Even different and varying futures that had yet to come to pass. How little decisions cascade into larger changes that cause a separate reality. Sometimes they had issues figuring out which path they were set on. They knew of every event that might happen, but not which event. They've been attempting to steer this reality to the future in which they get everything they want. In the future, they'd seen this meeting went exactly the same. They loved the ease in which Arya believed them without thinking too hard about it. Nodding, Arya took a deep breath before continuing where she had left off, to which they simply quieted down and listened, not a hard task. In the letter, Jon mentioned something that he learned that may help us get to the bottom of this. Okay, what is it? Sansa asked. He mentioned he heard of a diary that a Lord Commander of the Night's Watch wrote. I forget his name, but apparently it's stashed in Castle Black somewhere, Arya said. Jon said it had some information in there that would help us. Bran was normally completely still at all times, yet they froze stiller. This was not something that they had seen before. Arya had never done this in any reality they'd seen, which meant it was the first ever occurrence, an extremely rare happenstance, which meant they weren't at all ready for this. That diary contained several secrets that were supposed to stay hidden. If that information came to light, it would be never bad for them. They were not immediately sure what to do about it. This was not supposed to happen. They were not prepared. No one was supposed to know about that diary. This had changed everything. A diary? Sansa asked. Aye, Arya shrugged. It might just be a really old book. Perhaps it's not important at all. But it's a lead and it could help us, so Gendry and I are leaving tomorrow. I don't think you should go, Rickon said. Worried Arya may get hurt. Also generally didn't want her to leave. Bran and Sansa tell them they shouldn't go. Well, Arya crossed her arms. I think I need to go. There's no other way, Bran spoke. There may be a greater warg than me, with vile intentions. Maybe the diary names this evil warg that attacked me, Sansa said. It's possible, Arya nodded. Thankfully, Bran had figured out what to do about this. However, Sansa, you should send the Brotherhood without banners with them for protection. The Brotherhood? Arya frowned. Gendry and I don't meddle well with that group. Gendry had surely not forgotten being sold off to the Red Woman. Neither had Arya. Bran gathered that since this was the first time occurrence that they should try to steer it into familiar territory, but that meant that any actions they made could be made without fully knowing what would happen next. Usually, they are fully aware of all consequences ahead of time, yet they had to do something. In one reality they'd seen, Arya and Gendry left with the Brotherhood on a hunting expedition. They volunteered for the Brotherhood now because there were some loose ends that needed to be tied up there as well. Might as well try to end all of this at once. It was a tough journey for them. Heavy snow came out of nowhere, and some people didn't come back. Occasionally, they are attacked by wolves as well. Bran would try to get a similar conclusion. A best-case scenario is they never reach Castle Black at all. It might be good to have a larger group, Arya, Sansa relented. It's a long journey north. Wolves, Bran began, and then trailed off. A mistake. Something that happens when they are forced to think on their feet. Normally, they know exactly what to say. You may have an encounter with wolves. Yes, wolves. Protection will help with wolves, Sansa agreed. The Brotherhood should go with you. They've been sitting around just eating all of our food regardless. Better they clear out for a while. I don't like it, but all right. Likely Bran would need to figure out a way to have them might an end on the way to Castle Black, or at least force them to turn back. Nevertheless, Arya could not get her hands on that diary. They would stop her by any means necessary. Sansa said, Did Jon's letter say anything else we should know? Oh yes, I nearly forgot. Arya raised a finger. We should get Walken to research this. Jon said that Master said this warg might have a name. A name? I suspect that might be useful finding out who it was, Sansa scoffed. What is it? The Raven. Bran had never seen this moment either. Arya had said their name, their true name. 2 first occurrences in this timeline. They were stunned. Rosier continued. I know this might be true as well. I noticed a flock of raven eyeballing me on the ramparts. Sent chills down my spine. Sansa turned to Bran. What do you know of this, Bran? Bran was silent for a few moments. Then they said, nothing. A meeting had been called in Dragonstone to the Painted Table. Jon and Dany already having been talking together, and hopefully no one would notice her swollen lips headed in that direction through the halls. Her Dothraki strolled behind. What could this be about? Dany asked. Can't ever guess, Jon huffed. Could be anything. I suspect they plan to accuse me of something like usual. That wouldn't surprise me, Daenzier rolled her eyes. Nothing surprising me too much these days, Jon agreed, except how much I love you. It was low enough so only Daenzier could hear it, and she took advantage of their general solitude to peck his cheek. Jon couldn't wait for the moments when he could be as affectionate as he wanted with her. He needed it to fully heal. They reached the door to the Painted Table room, and the Unsullied, standing by it, opened both double doors for them. Entering the room, everyone was already there waiting for them. Dany took her seat at the head of the table like normal. Jera flanked Dany behind her to the right, while Jon waited nearby the door, peering over the room. He eyed Tyrion, who waved at him eerily. Dany clasped her hand on the table, everyone watching her. What is this about? Apparently it's important. Oh, it is, Your Grace, Tyrion said, almost giddy. Varys rose from his seat. Lord Tyrion and I have called this meeting for a very urgent issue, he said. We have uncovered essential evidence that unearthed Jon Stark's treachery, Tyrion added. What is it now? Dany sighed, tired of going around and around about this. Varys reached into his sleeve and pulled out a raven scroll. He held it up as it unfurled. This letter, written by Jon Stark, describes in detail his exact intentions here. Tyrion put a finger up, his true intentions. Jon threw his head back and sighed. Well, my supposed private correspondence is no longer private. What have you two done? Dany scowled. Varys handed the letter to Tyrion. He held it up, moving it around so everyone could look at it, then passed it to Ser Barristan, next to him. This raven scroll describes the treachery that Jon Stark has been sowing in this castle. Exactly as I have said he was. Exactly. Barristan's eyes scanned over it. His expression was quite grim. Aye, it does seem that way. What in seven hells? Jon said, eyeing widening, then realizing, he half laughed. You stole my letter? Lifted it, Varys corrected. From your chambers, yes. We decided it was worth reading for ourselves. Tyrion smiled, and it was. Lifted? How? Well, I have my ways, Varys said. It only took Jon a few moments to realize. So, it was handmaidens then. Varys' face was expressionless, he only shrugged. You are your handmaidens. Daenerys sighed, filing that away for later. You stole his letter. Jon was supposed to be given unadulterated access to Raven Scrolls without our prying eyes. Those were diplomatic correspondence. I decided that it was worth breaking a rule to confirm or deny my suspicions. If I had been wrong, then we would have returned it, and we would have never spoken of this again, Tyrion explained. You decided? What exactly are you allowed to decide? Dane seethed. Your Grace, Barristan cleared his throat. I understand your disgust with the way they procured the letter, but it does describe Jon Stark's true purpose here. Dany paused, eyes glancing at Jon, but not long enough for anyone to notice. Jon was already looking at her, so he saw it, of course. Unsure what to do about this, he decided to let this play out until he had a good opportunity to defend himself. Unfortunately, this was a heavy blow. Tyrion could try and have him thrown from a cliff over this. Imagining his beloved ordering it done left his soul in agony, but he dare not look at her. After a pregnant pause, it was Dany who spoke next, after not saying anything for several moments. What does the letter say? She asked quietly. She had seen the letter that Stannis had most recently written to Jon. However, if this was one newly penned by Jon, she had no real knowledge of it. He had mentioned he would reply promptly, and the tactics he planned to use to get Stannis to agree. Truly, Daenerys knew what he had to do, given weeks of discussion over it. But as to the letter he had just written, nothing specific word-wise of the content had been communicated. Given the severity of Tyrion's tone, she suspected Jon's writings could be taken directly in opposition to her, even if he was totally on her side. Barristan cleared his throat. Your Grace, perhaps it's better if you read it yourself. He held it up in the air. Missandei walked over and grasped the letter, walking back toward Daenerys, her eyes cast over the letter as she moved. A quick scan had her face snapping to Jon in confusion. Jon just slowly shook his head in response. The translator's response was not positive, but not negative either. Perhaps she understood his situation. Missandei handed Daenerys the letter. She took it quickly and rose from her chair. Turning her back on everyone, she took a few steps away and read. She didn't want anyone to see her countenance or reaction. Her eyes slowly examined the letter, one sentence at a time to get a full grasp. Jon watched her carefully. He fully understood why she had turned her around while she read. He did know that the letter would startle her, only hoping that she would know that those words didn't reflect his true intentions. Those seconds were some of the longest in his life. Truly, his heart felt as if it were being stabbed all over again, the pain returning. As Daenerys winced at the end of the letter, setting it down with a shake of the head, she glanced at him, their eyes meeting. Hers were worn, saddened. Jon dared not glance at Tyrion. If he saw one glimpse of triumph upon his face, he'd likely strangle the imp where he stood. But finally the Queen cleared her throat and answered, I see nothing that concerns me about this. She met Jon's eyes again, and there was trust reflected in her violets. Jon felt his soul unburdened, as uncouth as Lord Stark's words are, and he owes an explanation to me on them. For this council there is nothing further to discuss. Excuse me, Your Grace. Tyrion's hand clenched on top of the table. How in the seven bloody hells must we not discuss this? He nearly exclaimed, his finger leveled at Jon as if a sword. He is a deceiver sent here to seduce you. He does Stannis' bidding, the staying king's dog, if you will. He is not our friend. He should not be your lover. Varys nodded, clearing his throat. I can only imagine what the other letters he and Stannis have sent back and forth. We may not even know the full scope of this ploy. I fully suspect he has sent any secrets he's learned to King's Landing. Jon crossed his arms, staying silent. Daenerys spoke instead. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter? Tyrion was becoming incredulous. Did you read the letter? I read it. It is not Jon's true intentions, Dany said. Jorah, who had yet to speak, moved from behind Dany over to the letter. Picking it up, Jorah read over the letter multiple times rather quickly. If you read it, I mean truly read it, Tyrion huffed. How can you not see the issue at hand? It is not Jon's true feelings or reasons for being here, Dany said. That is why. Barristan shook his head. Your Grace, I must agree with Lord Tyrion. I concur, Varys echoed. Miss Yandy said nothing, but her face was caked with confusion. Then watched on too, but said nothing. Yes, me as well, Garland Tyrell spoke up. We are all in agreement here, Your Grace, Tyrion said. Tyrion and Daenerys continued to argue. Your Grace, Tyrion began. I am beginning to fear you yourself have become deluded by Jon Stark. He is not who he says he is. Whatever he said he's here to do is a lie. This letter is proof of what he's really here to do. Dany opened her mouth to speak, but Jorah broke in. Our plan of seduction proved essential. I was able to get close to her easily. I have her ear, and my position there can only grow, he recited from the letter. He stared at Jon and repeated the phrase. Our plan of seduction proved essential. I was able to get close to her easily. I have her ear, and my position there can only grow. He walked over to Jon, standing directly in front of him. I've said it twice to rid ourselves of any confusion. He held the letter up, close to Jon's face. You wrote this? Aye, Jon said, without regret. Dany supported him. The others could drown themselves for all he cared. You intended to send this to King's Landing, to Stannis Baratheon? That was the idea. Yes. Jorah rolled the letter up and tossed it on the painted table. So you know what it says? Yeah. What is your defense? Defense? Yes, Jorah said. I hope for your sake you have something to say in defense of yourself. Those words you've written have caused me to question your true purpose here, as for everyone else here, except for your Grace. He paused, glancing back at Dany, then continuing. It seems you have deceived her, fooled her. Do you remember what I told you when we first met, in these very same chambers? I do, Jon said, crossing his arms. You told me you wouldn't hesitate to take me down if I posed a threat to Daenerys. I said, even if you two love each other, if you have to go, Jon Stark. You'll bloody well go, Jon said, reciting it to him. I recall it. Jorah inched closer, sizing him up. Well, I see a threat, right in front of me. If it's a duel you want, Jon narrowed his gaze, I will strike you down. I will not hesitate. As much as I'd love to see that, Tyrion jumped in. Let's get back on track, though it's good to know that you're on our side, Ser Jorah. Jon lowered his voice, so only Jaq could hear. I would hate to see you go, Ser Jorah. As I said, I respected your father greatly, but do not delude yourself. You are older now. Do not challenge me. Jorah smirked. I think you might be surprised at my strength. I consider it more so that you don't notice it. I am on fire as my lord empowers me. Ser Jorah, Dany called out. Step away from Jon Stark. Now. Jorah frowned and paused, turning back to Dany. Though he bowed, doing as he was told. Dany started. I see and recognize the feelings of my small council. You are seeing. Unfortunately, in this circumstance, you are incorrect. It is not as you say it is. Flabbergasted, Tyrion blinked. I am stunned. Truly, this is evidence, Your Grace, Jorah pleaded. Evidence of Jon Stark's deception, his transgressions. Irrefutable, really. Varys shrugged. Jon finally began to see the situation devolving. In some ways, he saw the future. He understood for the first time at this moment the effect his presence here had caused. Daenerys' entire small council, minus Missandei, that she held no influence other than as her friend, had turned on her over him, because she defended him. Regardless that her reasons were pure, they do not all see it. Jon never regretted returning. It was needed to return to Daenerys and secure her love and trust, as well as to start the negotiations that could secure peace. But things were in danger of spiraling out of control. He imagined a future where her council had lost all trust in her, and in turn her supporters. In this future, he had been taken away from her. Or perhaps he had been killed as a result, leaving Daenerys alone. She'd just have her dragons, only. Eventually she'd use them on everyone. Perhaps she'd feel out of options, or it was her only choice then. but everything that he'd been striving to avoid happening to her would happen. Everyone would hate her, and she would hate them as well. In a flash, he resolved to revert course. Hopefully at this moment, doing what he could to avoid this imagined future. Things were better now, more secure both for Daenerys and for Stannis. Jaime was right. It wouldn't be much longer before Stannis accepted as Dany did. In his reverie, everyone had begun arguing again, but he stepped up, slamming his fist upon the table. In an instant, everyone stopped. The chamber's quiet. He began speaking. There is some truth to it, the letter, but not all of it. In many ways, it was written in a manner I know Stannis would wish to hear, as I have done many times over, but I have never meant to deceive Daenerys. That has never been my intention. He took a deep breath, glancing at Dany before continuing. But I know how it looks. You all will never accept me as a result of it. There is nothing I can say. However, there may be something I can do. Instead, he waited for a few moments, fully gathering his thoughts. He knew Daenerys was eyeing him. He could feel it, but he did not have the gall to return her eyes. But it was Missandei that spoke next. What will you do then, Lord Stark? He nodded to her. As I mentioned in the letter, I talked about a parlay, saying I could convince all of you for it. That is a lie. I'm not sure I can convince all of you to do it, but I can convince Stannis to do it. That I know. This power that you all think I have over Daenerys, I do have over Stannis. He will listen to me. He is a reasonable man, despite popular opinion. I will go to King's Landing. Once there, I seal the deal on the parlay, to which you all will have already agreed on. What? Tyrion scoffed. What? Jon ignored him. This is for the benefit of both parties. Stannis is an older man. He wants to bask in the glory of his victory. If he can avoid fighting you, he will take that chance. Because he knows he will lose, Jorah said. Yes, Jon agreed, because he will lose. Which means you have the upper hand. At this parlay, you will agree to the plan of succession, securing a bloodless changing of crowns at the appointed time for the first time in the history of the world. Jon, thinking of something, chuckled. All of this while holding the crown of a very powerful, very prosperous realm. If this is the army the Queen assembled after 2 years of ruling in Meereen, imagine one after 10 years. Agreements will not have reneged. He did dare to look at Daenerys then, and he could tell her face was mired with surprise and confusion. I do not understand why we would ever agree to that, Garland scoffed. The Red Keep would fall in a matter of days if threw our full weight at it. If we want to limit the loss of life, I suggest a siege, Barristan said. Why would we leave? We've come so far. And with us so close, Tyrion asked. It doesn't make any sense. Because you don't have to more of the fucking same, Jon said, raising his voice. He looked directly at Daenerys. You can be more than that. You are more than that. While he concentrated on Dany, a low chuckle came from Tyrion Lannister. Brilliant words, Lord Stark. I could have sworn you weren't always eloquent myself. But words written in secret mean more than words spoken in public. He pointed to the letter yet again. Speak to what you are truly here to do. What am I truly here to do, Lord Tyrion? Jon was starting to grow angry. Seek peace. Prevent this damned continent, already shattered enough by dynastic rivalry, from sinking further into a devastating war that leaves only corpses. I know Queen Daenerys wishes not for that and for a better world, and she and I share that vision. Taking a deep breath, he eyed each of them before finally settling on Daenerys. Your Grace, my presence here as the envoy of peace has run its course. My place is now in King's Landing to secure Lord Stannis' cooperation, and I will depart 2 days hence. You will hear from me as soon as a deal is reached. Her breath hitched, but Daenerys was a queen at heart, and she seemed resigned to the eventuality. She had not foreseen his sudden desire to exit, however. It deeply saddened her. She was resigned to defend him till her dying day. You have my commitment to a true summit of peace, but I cannot promise I can agree to Stannis' terms. That is fair. Jon turned to the others. None of you sought to attack King's Landing immediately, or if you did so, you didn't press it as much as you pressed me today. A special glare at Tyrion, who met that gaze without fail. If any of you sabotage this, you'll own the mountains of corpses that result. Turning, cloak furled over his shoulders for dramatic effect, he stormed out. Resolve in his eyes. Ser Davos, Is it? Looking up from his simple meal of porridge and bacon, Davos saw Tyann Martell stride into the private dining chamber, her attendants behind, but waiting at the doorway. She had no guards with her, she doesn't need them. He remembered her skill with a knife, and supposed she had them on her. Rising from his seat, Davos bowed. Your Grace, forgive me if I don't bend the knee, for I am a lot older, and they are quite stiff. Please, please, chuckled Tyann, dressed in the finest of garments in the fashion of the Crown Lands. Slim dress, but very puffy sleeves, but nonetheless radiant with a down-to-earth youth. She was quite young, after all, born the same year as Jon Stark, if he recalled correctly. There is no need, I came here to speak with you. While gesturing for King Stannis' wife to take a seat across from him, Davos remained standing until she did, her hands folded atop the table as she looked him in the eye. All right then, Your Grace. What would you like to talk to this old sea dog about? You are the son of a crabber. No, Davos raised a brow at her. My late sister Oberyn had a mother as lowborn as my father was highborn, so you'll find no judgment from me. All right, he chewed on some of his bacon, cooked crisp and salted to perfection. My father was a crabber, and I a smuggler. She nodded. His Grace told me that you were a smuggler that helped bring food through the Tyrell siege of Storm's End. Aye, I did. Saved them all, which was why Stannis knighted me and took me into his service. A chuckle. Did have to pay the price for my past, though. Davos showed his left hand, missing the top half of 3 fingers. Can't say I don't miss them, but serving Stannis has given me far more than it has taken away. A nod. I have grown to respect him greatly since our marriage, but that lack of any sort of flexibility will prevent him from being a proper and popular king. She flipped some of her hair behind her shoulder. That brings me to the heart of the matter. Princess Shireen, I am her stepmother, and I wish her to be introduced formally to court. Davos blinked. I would be in favor of the idea, certainly. That girl is the closest thing to a daughter I could have. But why now? Why would you wish for another woman's child to be part of court? The bastards of Robert Baratheon earned Cersei Lannister's wrath, after all. Frankly, Sir Davos, many don't trust me, and if I am to be what brings peace between Dorne and the rest of the 7 kingdoms, I must be seen as honoring my marriage, and the Princess Shireen is innocent. I've recognized that, given everything that's happened to me— The Princess Marcella, you mean, Tyann nodded. That was unfortunate, but unavoidable, sadly. But I should hope you've suffered enough. Frankly, Davos simply wanted peace as well. I shall talk to His Grace about it after breaking my fast. No, I shall. Do not concern yourself with the worry, Sir Davos. Reaching out to clasp his hand amiably, Tyann arose and departed. An hour later, Davos walked through the hallways towards the King's Solar, passing by the old courtyard map of Cersei Lannister's, repainted for Stannis' use by the castle's servants. Most bowed to him as he walked past, a member of the small council. Why did you bring me here, Littlefinger? Davos walked by Baelish, speaking to a gruff man in a dirty leather cuirass and high boots, hair stringy and beard haphazardly cropped. Because you were made promises, Sir Bronn. Promises that I am willing to make into a reality if you change allegiances. Davos hurried past them, nevertheless, listening, filing the information away for another day. The King's Guards let him pass into the Royal Solar, the same place that Robert Baratheon used to drink and fuck his whores in. Stannis refused such pleasures, instead working at his desk. Davos, he said amiably. Welcome. Davos bowed. Your Grace, I have seen Lord Handbecklish converse with a certain Sarkbron. Wait, who? Stannis looked up from his papers, peering as if trying to see something quite far away. Davos sat across from him, leaning forward in his chair. Ser Bronn of the Blackwater, the one that loosed the arrow at Blackwater Bay. He had just realized it, and the thought of his late sons. He shook his head. He's come to grips with it long ago, and thinking on his loss would have simply made it worse. He fought for Cersei Lannister as the guerrilla fighter prior to our taking King's Landing. Stannis thought for a moment, only to groan. Oh, him. I thought we killed him. No, he's far more wily than that. So what in 7 hells is he doing here? Walking about rather than in leg irons. Shrugging, Davos tapped his leg. Baelish and he were talking, so I assume the Lord Hand is trying to bribe him and his soldiers to come over to our side. I see. Stannis stroked his chin. He had shaved several days ago, but the stubble was returning. Can't say I blame my hand, given the success Tywin's irregular forces had against Robb Stark, Mountain's men, and the brave companions. Console, but damned effective. He shuffled through his papers, determined to keep working as Davos knew him to do. I am willing to let bygones be bygones. All those that fought for my fake nephew are mostly dead anyway. The rest are useless to keep chasing when the Targaryen and demonic menaces are to be fought. Arching his brow, Davos clicked his tongue. This was normally not like Stannis. He was not a man to let grudges go, given his iron sense of justice, bordering on draconian. Davos's 3 stunted fingers proved that facet. Sure enough, in a good mood, your grace. A gentle smile passed on the Stag King's lips, also an odd sight. I am, actually. Davos was sure he knew why. Her grace, I assume? The king sighed, leaning back. Do you remember being at my side while Robert was wed to Cersei? Seems like a lifetime ago, your grace, given all that has happened. Robert, he was my brother, but also a fool. However much of a whore and viper Cersei was then and ended up becoming, she was beautiful in the Great Sept that day. And instead of counting his blessings, Robert instead couldn't shake his pining over the late Lady Lyanna. Truthfully, Davos had never witnessed that, though the love Robert shared for Lyanna Stark was a legend at this point. Truly, he pined for her. Every moment of every day, just like now, I sometimes pine for Celise. She was foolish and not the prettiest, I can admit. But she was loyal to me, a loyal wife who birthed the only good thing in my life for the longest time. Closing his eyes for a moment, Stannis opened them, and Davos could swear he saw nothing but joy in the Baratheon blues they were famous for. And yet, Robert failed to accept it and move on with his life. I will always remember Celise, but unlike Robert, I will not destroy my life. I will move on and move on. I have. You love Queen Tywin, don't you? Chuckling, Stannis pounded the table. For a moment he looked akin to his late brother. Odd, isn't it? Myself a Baratheon and her, not even a true-born Martell, yet here we both are. He sighed, in happiness. By the old gods and the new Davies, I have never felt this way about any woman before. She is my spirit. Even my leg is healing, he proclaimed with astonishment. Davos smiled for his king. Don't knock it, your grace. I always healed from my wounds faster whenever Maria and the children were there with me. Your family, Davos, please bring them here as my guests. I cannot stand to think you sundered from them any longer. He bowed his head. You honor me, your grace. Davos would have been happy at the old Stannis emerging, but this was a man wholly unfamiliar to him, and that was a fortunate development. Mayhaps peace can be achieved after all, trusting Jon to work miracles. Miracles they remained, though, but sometimes they did emerge. A knock on the door broke the moment, and Stannis cleared his throat. Scowl returning. Enter. Lord Commander Edric complied, a raven scroll in his hand. Your grace. From Dragonstone. Stannis stiffened, while Davos's breath hitched. Dragon seal? The king grunted. No, your grace. The direwolf. Jonan, Davos stated, as Edric handed his uncle the raven scroll, bidding a quick exit. What does it say? Using a knife to pry open the seal, Stannis squinted as he skimmed it, only for another smile to emerge on his face. Jon, my son, in all but name, he is returning. Truly? Davos took the letter, almost disbelieving it. This could be a breakthrough, or he's returning home in disgrace. Regardless, we will win this peace and war with the Dragon Queen. He stomped his foot on the floor. Ready, the celebration, my son, is returning. The winter chill was finally hitting Dragonstone. Daenerys could feel it, and it was altogether alien to her. A light cloak served on the Dothraki Sea, while something slightly heavier worked to banish the winds blowing out from the sea when she first arrived in Westeros. But this was altogether different. Akin to the cold of high above when she rode Dragon, but without the warmth of her dragon to stay her shivering. Without the warmth of her beautiful Jon Stark, as was the case the night before. Your grace, she heard Missandei call from the doorway. His departure is nigh. Are you sure? Yes, she answered without hesitation. I refused to truly see him off last time, and it was a blight upon me till he returned. I won't deny this to myself again. Her closest, nay, only friend, bit back a smile. It is most refreshing to see you seek happiness, my queen. Without prompting, Missandei entered and grabbed the red-black cloak from where it lay on the bed. She was similarly dressed, albeit in a dark blue style. We wouldn't wish for you to catch a cold. No, I suppose not, but only one of us can seek Drogon's dragonfire to warm up. An attempt at a jape to lighten the mood. From their matching giggles, it worked up to a point. Missandei? Yes, your grace. Daenerys sighed. Do you trust Jon Stark? She trusted him, wanted to trust him. She trusted him, but the reticence of everyone else threatened her confidence in herself. She looked to Missandei for support. Do you trust his devotion to me? You mean whether he is loyal to you or to Stannis? Dany bit her lip, but immediately calmed when Missandei nodded. I do trust him. That man loves you, just as much as you do him. She let out a breath, relieved. Missandei smiled, only to click her tongue as the cloak fell into place. He loves you and is loyal to you, but don't think that he won't do everything possible to prevent you and Stannis from going to war. His loyalty to your opponent is almost as strong as he would choose you if it came to it, but that he will do what it takes so that it doesn't come to it. Missandei nodded. I think so as well. Do you wish it to come to that, my lady? What do you mean? This talk steadied her nerves. Mayhaps it was just what she needed. A discussion of the state of affairs with someone other than Jon or her council. Jorah was another option, but Missandei happened to be there. Stainsons. Her friend was patient and guided them both to the plush bed, sheets changed, and quilts put back into proper place, after she and Jon made quite a mess of them. The previous night. A magical night she would have to hold on to the memories in order to keep her sanity amid the loneliness. Stannis, do you think he can achieve peace? I certainly think if anyone can, it would be him. Stannis has no heir besides Shireen, who Tyrion says is sickly and shy. He's also old and tired, so even if Tini Martell bears a living son or daughter, chances are he will die before that child reaches maturity. She closed her eyes. Better the chance at his dynasty surviving intermixed with that of House Targaryen than him going for it all and losing. But there is my question. Dany opened her eyes and gazed at Missandei. Her expression gave nothing away. Do you want to have to wait for the throne, given all you have done to seek it and reclaim it? She sighed, resting her hands on her lap. I wish for peace, and I wish for a chance to create for Westeros what I did for the Bay of Dragons. If Stannis wishes for the same, then I will work with him. And I commend Jon for being so devoted as to restrain our most violent impulses. An impulse that Daenerys still believed contributed to Jon's death. He blamed her not, but that didn't mean she blamed herself. Dany trailed off. Missandei seemed to notice. You what? Nothing. But her friend was perceptive. You don't think it will work, do you? I trust Jon, I don't trust Stannis. She shook her head. He is the brother of the man who usurped my house. Viserys and I were quite different, but we shared the same enemies, just as Jon and his sister and late brother. I agree with you. I fear Lord Stark is simply wasting his time. Missandei placed her hands on Daenerys, a silent gesture of commiseration that only Missandei was allowed to do, apart from Jon at least. Daenerys appreciated it. I commend him for his desire, but I do not think it will work. Unlike Tyrion or Varys or Barristan, I do not extend that to a lack of loyalty on his part. A smile. Thank you, Missandei. Finally, Dany rose, smoothing out her dress and fixing the three-headed dragon clasp to proper order. Have Grey Worm and Barristan put together a strategy for taking King's Landing by a surprise storm, but do not mobilize anything till I give the order. Her friend nodded. It was best to be prepared. She was sure that Jon would understand. What composure she had gained after talking to Missandei had left her as she trudged onto the beach where a skiff waited to take Jon to a boat resting offshore. One glimpse of Jon in his fur coat and Longclaw tied at his waist made her break. She didn't quite run to him, but her riding boots helped her hurry across the sand. Daenerys thanked the gods for small favors as Jon turned just as she approached him, that beautiful small smile about his face as he opened his arms and she leaped into the embrace. Daenerys, he rasped, voice hoarse with his own emotion. She inhaled his scent. Jon. The embrace was savored, his strong grip. I don't know if this is better or worse than the last time I saw you off, Lord Stark. You know I'll return soon. But now I've grown used to you, she smiled up at him. Intimately so, and I liked it. So did I, he chuckled. But this has to be done. I know, he cupped her cheek. I will come back with the peace. You have my word on that. Jon kissed her brow. Do you trust me? Datsy met his eyes. I trust you. She wished to believe him and trusted that he would do his damnedest. Just promise me you'll come back no matter what. I promise. His eyes angled back towards the castle. None of your council came with you. Just your blood riders. Danu bit her lip. She couldn't deny that. They are wrong about me. Don't let them change your mind. I am the queen, and I am not my father. He didn't let her say anything else. Only kissing her. A deep toe-curling kiss, as all else disappeared between them. Merely two lovers enjoying themselves. One final moment of passion before yet another separation. It wasn't fair, but they weren't just any pair of lovers. Daenerys knew her duty, and so did Jon. A shadow passing overhead was joined by a large thud landing on the cliff above the beach. Daenerys broke from the kiss to look up. Rosiegel, the green dragon, watched them, his amber eyes almost mournful. He's not angry, correct? Somehow Jon's nervousness made Daenerys laugh, head falling into his chest. Aye, he's not angry. Upset, but likely cause he senses my mood. Drogon is your dragon, no. The black one? Aye, but they're all my children. They know I'm upset that you are leaving. She reached up to cup his cheek. I love you. I love you too, Dany. I will return to you. She smiled. You made that promise once and kept it. Their eyes locked. Now keep your promise again. I hate the snow. You've been in worse snow than this, Bull. Yes, but I still hate the snow. Roosier Stark swatted Gendry in the shoulder. You're an idiot, but you're good with a hammer. Not to mention good on the eyes if you're a lady, that is, said Thoros of Myr, chuckling in his half-drunk drawl. A glare from Bran Stark's sister, one that harkened back to her days of emotionless rage at the House of Black and White. They had seen all of it in detail. And no lady, and shut it. Beric Dondarrion laughed. Just means she wants him more. I haven't taken you off my list yet, so watch it. The beasts stepped forward, eyes giving them a keen glimpse of the group. Not expert stalkers of animals, they were gathered nevertheless in a hollow diamond around the few pack animals and the horse in which Arya Stark rode. The smith, Robert Baratheon's bastard, just as strong and skilled with a hammer as his father had been, hadn't left Arya's side for most of the journey. No, this would not be easy. Not be easy at all. Able to take control of an animal or human, they were not an animal. Unlike some wargs, they did not intend to allow their quarry to share control, and as such they wouldn't have access to what this wolf knew of how to stalk prey through the woods, how to approach without being seen or heard. The snap of a twig underneath the wolf's paws startled even him. Expert trackers they were not, at least not to the level of animals, but they all noticed the snap and tensed. Where? Shouted Beric in a harsh whisper. No need to shout or panic, but a veteran of battle. Arya was a veteran of more than just that. Dangerous, if made less so by her remaining sentimentality. There, she pointed in the direction of the wolf. Senses sharp. If only she had stayed among the faceless men. A ruthless killer without sentimentality was something far less likely to interfere. They had planned for this, and quickly the wolf's gaze receded, replaced instead by that of a sparrow resting above in the canopy of the trees. Disoriented, the wolf stumbled out onto the forested trail, shaking its head and whimpering, seemingly missing the several spears and notched arrows pointed its way. Easy, boys, easy, Thoros snorted, laughing. It looks drunk. Not hunting, mused Arya. Gendry sniffed. I don't know wolves, but that thing isn't a threat. The wolf finally noticed them, but whimpered. They watched it skid back, afraid. Weak! It's alone, the second one they feared. The reed girl watched the lone beast with rapt attention. Wolves are never alone unless scouts... Then it's a fucking scout, Thoros mused. Scouts never show themselves. The beast whimpered and scurried back into the trees. It's odd, very odd. Mira hadn't drawn her blade or her bow. It was as if the arrival of the wolf, she wasn't afraid of it. The sparrow blinked its eyes, watching the party move on through the woods. They didn't take sight off Reed or Arya Stark. They were the most dangerous, the former because she knew of them and the latter because she knew of the diary, of the Raven Mar, so than any other. Aemon Targaryen knew their past vessel, and Aemon Targaryen told Jon Stark, who told Arya Stark. If she told Mira Reed? No. A flash of white found them back into the cavernous chambers in which Bran Stark called home. Dreadfully trite, but they didn't mind. It was safe. Feeling cold, they worked the stiff arms of their human form, reaching down to grab a log and toss it into the hearth. A being of the ice and darkness, the fire fascinated them, the source of the power of their ultimate foe, the one that could harm them permanently. Not the temporary dangers that Arya Stark or Mira Reed were. Fear them they did not, at least not in the grand scheme of things. Shame our earlier vessel wasn't the powerful man he once had been. That would have been interesting, but this was close enough to ultimate triumph, and he wouldn't be delayed again. Not like how hui. They shook their head, taking in a deep breath, the chill in Bran Stark's human lungs invigorating their mind. The Brotherhood was too powerful to take on now. More beasts, more power, not to mention they didn't know where the diary was. Only Aemon, and he was dead, but passed on the information to Arya Stark through Jon Stark. Let Arya get the diary. Let them leave Castle Black. By then, we'll be ready. And the diary would disappear into the woods of the north forever. For the first time in weeks, a genuine smile crossed their face. Lurching in the sand, sailors scrambled out of the skiff and were joined by servants rushing from the shore to pull it onto the beach. Jon steadied himself, not wishing to fall or wobble too much. It was best that he stand firm and secure, given the delegation that waited to greet him. For someone of his stature, a delegation was necessary. Baelish, Hand of the King, and Davos were present, which didn't shock him. What did make him do a double take was that the king was also standing in the sand. King's guards surrounded him, and he was dressed in a simple gambeson in the Baratheon colors, still as wiry and fit as ever. But as Jon scrutinized him, there was a levity about the king. Stannis was happy. He looked very happy and content, likely for the first time Jon ever knew him, had his memories been intact. He is a newlywed. Certainly, Jon had looked similar after properly connecting with Daenerys as he had desired. Daenerys. It wasn't lost on him that the Jon of old would be greatly uncomfortable with mummery. Sam had said he nonetheless did it. With the free folk, so too would he do it here. As he sought to save the free folk too, he would also save Stannis. You will bring peace, he repeated this mantra in his mind as he exited the skiff, leaping off the side and landing on the surf, boots squelching in the wet sand. You will bring peace. The mummery began as soon as he approached the king. Your Grace, he bent the knee, playing the role. Truth be told, he preferred to bend the knee to Daenerys in more ways than one. Stannis reacted equally, if not similarly, as excited as Daenerys. Rise, Jon, my boy. His voice was still gruff, but Stannis held a smile on his lips as he embraced Jon tightly. The gods shine their beneficence upon me to see you safe and unharmed after entering the dragon's den. He cracked a small grin. I survived it once, Your Grace. As the old saying goes, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Stannis chuckled. Quite true. Quite true. Now, come, let us head to my solar. We have much to discuss. Jon allowed the king to lead him off, while Davos and Littlefinger followed him. Lord Stark, he stiffened as he heard Baelish's pleasant voice. A man that could put one at ease. But Jon never was. Perhaps instinct, though a faint memory of a redhead speaking about him filled his mind. Sansa, my sister. She told him not to trust Baelish, and Jon wouldn't. It is heartening to all of us that the Dragon Queen did not harm you. He would not give this man anything. She is committed to peace. Of course, I would not be harmed. We shall soon see the truth of that, won't we? Was that a threat? Even Jon couldn't read this man. But I heard that the Kingslayer has accompanied you. Stannis' brow rose. Jaime Lannister, is this true? Jon furrowed his brows, thinking, Queen Daenerys gave him to me. He is my prisoner. He was my prisoner. He should return to the Black Cells. Your Grace. Jon wouldn't argue with Stannis, instead making a reasonable plea. Not wishing to sound too desperate. House Stark has suffered more than anyone from the Lannisters. Lord Tyrion is untouchable, though he ordered the death of my brother Brandon. Littlefinger's face was placid, while Stannis raised a brow. Allow me as the son of Ned Stark to punish him as I see fit. Stannis was silent until he nodded. Aye, that is both fair and just. He is yours. Still, Littlefinger said nothing, but Jon was sure he had won this opening round of the begun dick-measuring contest. He'd fought Tyrion Lannister, so he recognized it when he saw it. However smart Tyrion was, Jon figured Baelish would be more of a challenge. The rest of the journey up Aegon's high hill was anticlimactic. Stannis made small talk, to which Jon replied as best he could. Matters about health and comfort mostly, while Jon asked about her Grace Queen Tyenn. Stannis could not stop gushing about her, for once a bit of serenity about him that seemed quite alien. Not unwelcome, a rested, happy king was more likely to be persuaded to accept the peace terms in order to enjoy the tranquil rest of his days. Happier though he was, age had still settled upon the Stag King, 10 years, 15 at most. Plenty of time for Daenerys to complete her work in Essos, then rule over Westeros for another 20 to 30 years, and Jon saw himself by her side, all throughout. Finally, they reached the Solar of the King, a place Jon remembered distinctly, with the smell of smoke mostly gone. The place had a better air to it, though some came from a few home touches more than just Baratheon banners. "I see you're admiring it," Stannis spoke, his limp returning, as the Kingsguard closed the door to leave the two of them their privacy. Shireen insisted on putting in a feminine touch. Not too much, lest I be like that pillow-biting Tyrell boy, but enough to lighten things. Having essentially made a female's bedchamber his home for the past weeks, Jon nodded. "I understand," he made to sit. "No, don't," Stannis barked out, motioning to the table between them when Jon was about to sit. "Bring your chair here. You have earned the right to face me directly." A glorious honor, a sign of Stannis's continued loyalty to him. Even hardened as he was, Jon rubbed the back of his neck humbly. "How was it with the dragon bitch?" Stannis asked, as soon as Jon sat across from him. Jon stiffened, trying not to scowl. "Your Grace, she is someone you wish to make an accord with, and your second cousin by way of blood." Bringing up their shared kin was something that might predispose him to agree. "We want peace, do we?" Stannis stared hard at him, as if trying to read Jon's emotions. "What did she say to you exactly? Tell me." This was the moment of truth. She was not inclined to give up her claim, as you aren't, but as I came up with a solution to secure both your claims, she was interested. "I see. And you're sure of this? This succession where she is my heir, then her heir marries my child with Tyenn? She is only willing if you accept her independent rule over the Bay of Dragons." Stannis waved him off as if that didn't matter to him. "One condition meant, and that you hold up your end of the bargain as her cousin and blood kinsman." Stannis sighed. "I remember my grandmother Radyal, the sweetest woman." He grew wistful, but continued. "But she is not married, Jon. Or is that taken care of?" His brow raised, while the ghost of a smirk crossed his lips. Jon smiled back. "Between you and I, there is a betrothal that she is interested in." "Good, very good." A concerned look came on Stannis' face, almost fatherly. "Would it be asking too much of you, Jon? You've broken your father's honor to seduce her, and now to take her to wife. To go to Essos." He took a deep breath. "The North is in good hands with Sansa and Rickon. For you. For peace. I will do what I must. I always saw you as a son to me, and as you are, as far as I'm concerned." He tapped the desk. "I still believe somewhat that I do not need this peace. That I can win this war regardless of the losses. What do you say to that?" Again, he waited, formulating his thoughts. "You are Lightbringer, prepared to bring the dawn against the long night. He was prophesied to unite the living against the dead, not to add more meat to the Night King's army." Jon paused, wondering if he should state these next words or not. He decided, fuck it. "Your Grace, I've spent ample time on Dragonstone now," Jon began. "Daenerys has many, many loyal followers. Her forces honestly exceed yours twice over, and in firepower, those dragons bring fire and brimstone, more than you can ever imagine. I've seen it as a battle. There is no true counter. What if those spear launchers? They may make a dent. Or if there are 2 or 3 well-placed spears could take one down." Jon shrugged. "The odds of that, low, Your Grace. They fly at a high speed. I only witnessed 1 dragon in battle. 3? Unstoppable. So you're saying, my plan, the plan for peace between the two of you, is likely in your best interest. Your Grace, respectfully." Stannis nodded. "I thank you greatly for telling me this. Not often do I hear it as it is. You know, what I hear seems sugar-coated." "Yes, my boy, sugar-coated. I only wish for peace, Your Grace. We've fought over the Iron Throne for too long. let the lives lost decrease, not increase. Not to mention, a true battle between you and Daenerys, the dead bodies would reach the heavens. Jon shook his head at the thought. Stannis nodded. So much blood. Too much blood. For the longest time, Stannis was silent, stroking his beard. He finally began, will bring this before the small council. Then I will make a decision. As the Kingsguard closed the door behind him, Jon found himself face to face with Davos. Lad, welcome back. He embraced Jon just as tightly as Stannis did, and Jon allowed himself to return the embrace, squeezing. Truly, he was relieved and overjoyed to see Davos again, but his brows furrowed when Davos spoke into his ear. Let us talk in my solar. An obvious code. It's not safe to talk out in the open. He nodded, following. I trust everything is shipshape, Davos. Everything has been wonderful since the wedding of their graces. The Queen's influence has mended relations among the King and the rest of the Seven Kingdoms, apart from the unfortunate situation in the Reach. The Dragon Queen defeated Baelor Hightower in battle, and he bent the knee, agreeing to accede to the wardenship of Garland Tyrell. Unfortunately, the situation is where he is stuck. Further war is something his grace doesn't desire. I know, Jon spoke just as Davos ushered him into nondescript chambers. All right, Davos, he spoke softly. May we speak freely? Davos nodded. Now tell me. Did the Dragon Queen agree to peace? Jon sighed. She has, but her council is divided. Did you inform Stannis of this? Davos said after a silence. Only the former. Jon? This deal has to go through Daenerys, you know this. He groaned. Gods, this war has to end. And the only way is if both parties come out satisfied with the outcome, if not completely happy with it. Sighing, Davos sat in his chair, leaning back. What has the Dragon Queen said of the matter, of what she wishes? Even with Davos, whom he did trust, Jon had to weigh exactly what he could afford to tell him. She is eager to finish what she started in the Bay of Dragons, Slaver's Bay. She changed the name, eh? Davos shrugged. Good. The place was an eyesore, anyway. Once grandeur is inhabited by insects selling each other like beasts of burden. If she wishes to end that monstrosity, then I'm in her corner. But as for Westeros, Daenerys is willing to accept Stannis' rule as long as she is named heir and earns the oaths of all his sworn lords, he repeated, and wishes for her heir to be of herself and one of Stannis' allies. Davos's brow rose as a grin spread over his face. One of Stannis' allies, huh? Anyone specific? Perhaps with black hair, gray eyes, and broods all the time? Aye. Did you two practice for the wedding night? He blushed even redder. Aye. It was like confessing to one's father. Davos clapped him on the back. Good on ya, new lad. You deserve this. His smile faded. But her small council, the thought of her council made Jon's blood boil. Her closest friend is on my side, as are Lord Greyjoy and perhaps Sir Garland, but that's it. Barristan the Bold and Varys don't trust Stannis, while Ser Jorah Mormont isn't inclined to trust anyone. And Lord Tyrion? Tyrion hates me, not Stannis, me. I think he's threatened. You're very threatening, lad. He furrowed his brows. Myself and her grace are in favor of this deal, as I hope is Stannis. Davos trailed off. He's considering it, but wishes to ask the small council for their opinions in my presence. Then you'll run into your major obstacle, Littlefinger. Not surprised Baelish is causing trouble, also threatened by it. I think he's not looking forward to having to worm his way into the good graces of the Dragon Queen, instead of a child of Stannis' loins. Davos shrugged. So, we need to worry about both Tyrion and Littlefinger. Jon leaned against the wall. As long as Daenerys doesn't let Tyrion poison her mind, and we interfere with Littlefinger's attempts to do so with Stannis, I think peace is at hand. Davos poured 2 goblets of wine and handed one to Jon. God's willing. Jon planned to get good and drunk tonight, downing it with a single gulp. Grey Worm hadn't placed both his feet on the stone jetty for 3 seconds before Missandei launched herself at him, the embrace, crushing. But she couldn't help herself. You came back to me, love. He hugged her back, though his expression was devoid of a smile. Unsullied training was hard to break. I promised, did I not? She leaned back mock, shaking her head. In common tongue. A groan. Truly, why? Until you are fluent, Torgo Nudo. Narrowing his eyes, he finally sighed, which she rewarded with a beaming smile. I hope I get kiss when I come back, not attack, that right word. Criticize is what you're looking for. She chuckled and gave him a kiss. One that deepened, unable for her not to. If this is what my queen feels about Lord Stark, not only can I not blame her, but she is a lucky woman. None of them knew truly the value of such a bond of affection and love. Reunion complete for now. The Missandei hoped for more later. Their composure returned and they walked side by side, rather formally towards the stairs leading into for the keep. Why does Queen pull me from Rosier? He asked, brow raised. We not attack King's Landing? Missandei shook her head. Daenerys has a chance to make peace with the Stag King. Do we want peace? We come to win. For Queen on throne. He made a compelling argument for peace. Who? Jon Stark. Grey Worm's eyes widened. He come back? While for all of Jon's absence and his return, Grey Worm had been on the front lines. He had witnessed Jon's death at Daario's hands and his resurrection by Melisandre. There was no forgetting the Lord of Winterfell. Why? As Stannis' peace envoy, though I suspect it was merely to see our queen, a smile curled on her face. They are lovers. I see. The topic wasn't one Grey Worm seemed comfortable talking about. So we fight for Stag or Misa. He wants peace, though if push comes to shove, I believe he will fight for her. She raised her brow at him. Do you believe peace is worthy of getting, or that it is achievable? Grey Worm was quiet for a moment, face stony. If my queen desires peace, then I desire peace, as long as her interests are served. Yet I trust no lord or knight to keep word. They are masters in truth. Poignant. Missandei truly had nothing to say in response, for what was else to say? It was the two of them that arrived at the small council first, apart from the two red priestesses, that is. Daenerys beamed at the sight of Grey Worm, although even such a radiant smile couldn't hide how tired and sunken her eyes were, clearly missing Jon Stark, enduring a bed for once without him beside her. Missandei knew the feeling quite well, and empathized. Torgo Nudo, it warms my heart to see you return to me unhurt and victorious. He wasn't one to bask in praise. I cannot say we are victorious. King's Landing still in hands of Stag. Yes, well, Missandei didn't know what to make of Tyrion when he first arrived. A smart man, if naive in the ways of usse. Later she had warmed to him as his counsel Volve and been an irreplaceable member of her Grace's circle of advisors. Now, though, the arguments he insisted on instigating simply gave her a headache. That is the gist of the situation. Now is it? Enough, Lord Tyrion, Daenerys warned. Let us wait for the rest before we discuss matters. Missandei watched Tyrion take a seat the closest around the painted table to where King's Landing was. No one was lost on the symbolism. Yes, I can wait, Your Grace. Waiting for the others, Missandei took her position on her queen's right, the place of honor. How are you, Your Grace? I'm fine, she replied. Missandei nodded. Lady Linnis worked well on your braids. Missandei had spent her morning preparing for Grey Worm's arrival, and so it had been the newly arrived hostage from the Reach to prepare Daenerys. Naturally, she was given quarters far from Ser Jorah's. Please forgive me for not being able to... Daenerys waved her off. No, Grey Worm was more important. I am happy for you. Her tone was subdued. Worried about Lord Stark, Your Grace. Daenerys bit her lip but nodded, both Theon Greyjoy and Garland Tyrell entering the small council chamber. He'll be fine. You don't know that. Stannis won't harm him. Mayhaps he is the one person thought of highly by both monarchs and their retinues. Not everyone, murmured the queen, her eyes affixed on Lord Tyrion, greeting Lord Varys and Ser Barristan. Moments later, the hand took his place to the left of the queen. All right, let us begin. She looked to Grey Worm. Your return was uneventful. Grey Worm nodded. Normally we get raids from Stag King, but now there is a lull. They are not raiding, and nor do we. Mayhaps they're biding their time, Tyrion mused. For something big. Or they're not making any move until the outcome of negotiations. Garland spoke. Rare for him in one of these. Lord Varys, do you have any clarity on this? Daenerys also looked upon Lord Varys, as did Missandei, the same question dancing in their minds. Varys cleared his throat. My little birds are still spotty in King's Landing, but all of them have said the Stag King is in a good mood these days. Quite domestic with his new bride and the arrival of Jon Stark to the capital. Why did you not tell me that Jon Stark had arrived? Daenerys' tone was put off. I was to do it in this meeting, Varys replied. Yes, I do believe you were. The Queen did not sound convinced, but let it go. All we must do now is wait for Stannis' reply to the tentative peace offer. Assuming he includes no nautical conditions, then the peace will be accepted. Will we depart for the Bay of Dragons then? Your Grace? Missandei asked. She couldn't deny she wasn't a bit anxious to finish the end of slavery there. Some attention from the now far more powerful Daenerys would conclude the last bits of reform needed. Daenerys shook her head. No, I still must introduce myself here as the heir and future queen. Show the people of Westeros that I am not just a monster as my father was. Wise, Your Grace. Wise. Barristan spoke. I didn't realize you were in favor of the proposed treaty, Ser Jorah spoke for the first time, previously silent as he stood close to the Red Priestesses. Barristan blinked. If she chooses peace, then that is a smart plan. Hedging, I see. All of you are hedging, Tyrion spoke abruptly, drumming his fingers upon the table. We have all before us to take King's Landing now, and yet we don't. Choosing some period in the future to rule when anyone could betray us and force us to fight this war all over again. You disagreed with such a course of action when we first came here, Lord Tyrion, Missandei brought up, remembering the First War Council, when Ellaria Siandiakare and Yara Greyjoy were still alive, as was Daario Naharis. Quite a change. Circumstances have changed. Your family not within King's Landing, Theon offered. Tyrion glared at him. No, Greyjoy. My brother is still there, if I recall correctly. With Jon Stark, his voice was bitter. Missandei could tell. My sister and Stannis have already let loose the firestorm over the city. Whatever taboo was there has been broken, and if our queen decides to attack even with her dragons, the blame for turning it into a battlefield rests squarely with Cersei and Stannis. Varys pursed his lips. A valid point. Valid, but one I will not do, Daenerys said with finality. I meant what I said about not being the Queen of the Ashes. I would rather inherit a peaceful kingdom in 10 years than assume dominion over a wasteland now. I must protest against this foolishness. Is it only you that doth protest? Daenerys looked over those present. Not one made a sound, not even Varys or Barristan, the two most fearful of Jon Stark's influence. Missandei saw Jorah, almost in pride of Daenerys. We wish her to rule. We trust her. Look out for her, but trust her. The others had their own interests at heart. It is only you, much like your brother, you think with your... Finish that sentence, I urge you. Daenerys' eyes affixed on Tyrion as he trailed off, an insult unfinished. Missandei waited to see if he would finish it, but the imp wasn't stupid. Forgive me, Your Grace. Sometimes my mouth moves without me thinking. See that it doesn't happen again. And so the council moved on, all but Missandei. Aying Tyrion. Perhaps she was the only one that surmised he knew exactly what he was thinking. The bottle was 2/3 empty, an expensive vintage, one that Tyrion didn't expect Stannis to have the palate to truly appreciate when he found it in the wine cellar upon their arrival on Dragonstone. Mayhaps it was Rhaegar Targaryen that collected it.
Oh.
That was more likely. Regardless, though, he was the one who enjoyed it. Finishing his goblet, the imp poured some more until it was filled to the brim, sipping enough that the cup wouldn't spill at some accidental jostling. He had arrived in his chambers barely after the meeting of the small council after conferring with Ser Barristan and Varys about something, both individually. Both agreed with him, but neither could do anything about it. Tyrion huffed. Fools, small-minded ones. Barristan is too loyal, and Varys too narrow-minded in his thinking. Obsessed with small-scale plots and espionage, the spymaster could get all the information in the world. But could he use it? Tywin Lannister could, and as Tyrion said years ago, in that damned privy, he was more Tywin's son than any other. So why was this so damned hard? Picking up the goblet, Tyrion shimmied off his seat and ambled towards the window, again reminding him with every step he took that he was a dwarf. Well, Jon Stark, I was wrong. Dwarves are worse than bastards. At least you can blend in with the rest of them. Get a king to remove most of the stain away. Jon was not there, and he didn't even stare at a portrait or a sculpture. Yes, I'm drunk. He drank and he knew things, but did he do those at the same time? Tyrion fancied that he could take some of his father's mantle from him. How did you do it, father? How did you defeat the Rains? The Mad King, Robb Stark. The answer was obvious. Amoral brutality, ones that picked off the weakness of each person he faced. Rhaen's overconfidence, Targaryen paranoia, Stark's honor. But I will not be able to do what you do. His fist clenched as he cast damnation on the dead. Damn you, Dario, Navarese, you fucking fool. Jon Stark was his enemy. Tyrion could see it night and day, but unlike with Dario, it wasn't personal. That was Dario's flaw, even after the queen rejected him. He was obsessed, a jilted lover seeking a return to the bed of his former mate. That Dario picked the true threat to Darius's ambitions was not the point. He hadn't known that. He'd thought with his cock. Tyrion knew a lot about that, but not one woman had touched him since Shae died. Since I killed her, he attacked his wine, forcing himself to drink till that memory went away. Gasping for breath as he drained half the goblet, he was forced to steady himself. Fuck. He could take much, but wasn't a machine. No, Jon Stark wasn't Stannis' toy. Tyrion could read people, and what he saw pointed to a love-struck puppy rather than a deceptive spy. He's like I was with Tysha, with Shae, only it is not her that is the one that will stab in the back. Jon Stark was hopelessly naive, hopelessly outclassed in this game of peacemaker. Stannis would never give in, and nor should Daenerys. She needs to see reason that he is a fool who would lead her to ruin, that Daenerys should accept him into her confidence again, and all would be well. Stannis killed the throne hers. She could even have Jon again, but as a consort, or tossed back north to where he actually belonged. I won't let her kingdom wither away, he said to himself as he squinted over the sea, trying to make out the dragons fishing under the moonlight. She forged it, and I helped her hold it. If someone doesn't do something, Jon Stark will have it all frittered away at the cusp of her victory. He knew what he had decided to do would probably lead to his death. It ended that way for Dany IV, had committed blatant murder while his efforts were more subtle. But Dany wasn't one to label treason as something else. Mayhaps this technically was, but Tyrion felt that there just wasn't any other choice. The deal is just that, a piece of paper Stannis will break as soon as he can. If it broke sooner when Daenerys was still ready to take it all, then all so much the better. Dare you, bastard! I am playing your game. Playing it right. He poured himself another large goblet of Arbor Gold and promptly downed it. He would need to fortify himself as he sat back at his desk and dipped his quill in ink. I did enjoy the intellectual sparring sessions with you, old friend. It felt good to begin them again, especially for the greatest cause of all.